And we are back with a brand new episode of the Sens Hour podcast. It's Shane alongside Derek. We're part of the Hockey Podcast Network, and we are sponsored by Customized Sports. If you already haven't checked out our pinned tweet on Twitter, we have a jersey kit contest running between now and the end of November. You have a chance to win either a Brady Tkachuk jersey kit or a Thomas Chabot jersey kit. And I'll tell you right now, the early signs are showing all Chabot. It's kind of a runaway for a little bit for Chabot. Tkachuk's getting up there, but it seems like Ottawa fans really want that Chabot jersey. And, I don't blame them. That 72 looks crisp. I think with his contract kind of sectioned off for the next 8 years, people are like, oh, longevity, that's the jersey we're going to get. If Tkachuk announced a signing, I guarantee you Tkachuk would be the number one selling jersey in the NHL.
Yeah, at least from an Ottawa perspective, for sure. And maybe even in the NHL right now with the new Sens jerseys. They're definitely a hot ticket item right now. So, it is interesting that Chabot is leading the race. But as you said, you got that security there with the 8 years locked up, and hopefully they could do the same with Tkachuk.
Yeah, hopefully. And I mean, we have there's talk of, I don't know if you saw the tweet, but it sounds like some teams are starting to bring back their players from loan. So I wonder if we're going to start seeing that with some of the Ottawa players. But we got to talk about one of the kids that are just lighting up Europe right now, and that's Robbie Jarventie. I think we've talked about him almost every episode because he continues to impress over playing in the men's league, playing minimal minutes. But he had another goal, putting up his total to 12 points in 14 games. Ridiculous for an 18-year-old.
Yeah, and you touched on it. It's the minutes thing that gets me. I mean, this kid is playing just over 12 minutes a game, and he's putting up these kind of points on a good team. But this is the top league in Finland we're talking about, and this kid just turned 18. Like he has risen so much. He's rocking the Red Bull helmet right now, and I mean it's a great innuendo because he's growing some wings and he's flying up the charts right now. If there was a redraft tomorrow, this kid would be in the first round. I don't think there's any question about it.
Yeah, and I mean they did say that he had first round talent, but it's kind of crazy how I think he's averaging like just around 13 minutes a game, third line minutes. Good power play time. I think I saw it was like kind of a 2 minutes of power play time a game, and like that's impressive for an 18-year-old kid. Some of the reports that I've read had him. They were really impressed with him. They wanted him up last year, but they thought they might rush him a little bit, so they brought him up to Liga and then loaned him down to Division 2, and then brought him up full time this year. And man, it's worked wonders.
Yeah, that team is they have some impressive young players. I mean, that whole team does. But he's playing with, I believe, Juuso Välimäki, if I'm saying that right. Probably not, but another top prospect, and the two of them are playing extremely well together.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think as Sens fans, this is like a Shane Pinto 2.0. You're just kind of – I hope he goes to the World Juniors, and I hope he dominates the World Juniors.
Yeah, he's projected in that lineup now. So hopefully we do get to see him at the World Juniors, and he'll become kind of a household name for Sens fans, at least for the next little bit. He's, again, as you said, he's forcing us to talk about him every week. He just keeps doing something special, and it's the release that the kid has that is really next level. I mean, that's what's going to get him. If he does make it in the NHL, that's what's gonna make it for him.
Yeah, and I mean, I was reading an article on The Athletic because I finally caved and decided to subscribe to it. I mean, it was 75 cents a month. I'm not going to complain. But it was an article from Scott Wheeler and Haley. I can never pronounce her last name. Is it Salvian? Salvian. And they were breaking down Robbie Jarventie's film. And like, there's a couple of clips on there, like, showing how he doesn't follow the puck. He understands that the play is going this way, so I'm going to skirt around back and kind of go in for a backdoor pass. And he seems to evolve his game into being able to get himself open and get lost in the crowd, which I don't think we've had in a forward in quite a while. There's not a guy that like really comes to mind when I'm like, who's someone who can get lost in the crowd or who has been able to get lost in the crowd, really since like Alfredson or Heatley.
Yeah, exactly. Those offensive instincts are definitely opening him up for that release, and he's got both working for him. He can open himself up, as you said, and then he uses that release at the same time. And right now, teammates are getting him the puck. He is working with a little bit more space out there. We should mention that they do play on a bigger ice surface, but at the same time, you don't want to take away from what this kid is doing at 18 years old. He's definitely forcing us into some conversations, and I think he's moving along in his development way faster than anyone would have even expected. Even the Senators after the draft, they said, he has so much to work on. He's got to develop his defensive game completely, his play away from the puck, but he just seems to be making strides so quickly that it'll be interesting to see how quickly he becomes an Ottawa Senator.
100%. And I think, watching the clips and watching what's available, because I haven't been able to watch much of his games, he's worked a lot on being able to play without the puck. And obviously, like you said, there is that default or kind of question marker because of the ice surface. But if he can hone those skills in a bigger ice surface, it means that he should be able to translate them relatively well onto a North American ice surface. It's not like he's going to have to come over here and learn how to play that style. He knows how to play it. If he can kind of sharpen it up and make it kind of more of a his every game kind of thing, coming over to North America shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, and we'll get a chance to see it hopefully at the World Juniors pretty well right away with the smaller ice surface against peers his own age. And that'll be definitely one of the prospects I'm most interested to see, aside from, I think Jake Sanderson, for me, has maybe the most intrigue behind him, just because he keeps mentioning the fact that he's going to prove that he's more of an offensive player than people give him credit for. So that's something I really want to see. But Robbie Jarventie is the next kind of player that I want to see from a Sens prospect standpoint if Stützle is not on the World Junior roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think if looking at it, I think we have a good amount of players. I think Ridley Craig could make his name for it. There's talk of Gannett out of Val-d'Or, who was our 7th-round pick last year. He was one of the last people cut from last year's team. There's talk that he could be invited to the actual camp if a player like Drysdale or Byram they're Anaheim or Colorado has decided, hey, we want you for our camp, specifically Drysdale on that right side. Those are guys I think we could see quite a bit of talent, Senators prospects at the World Juniors this year across the states, because we also have Pinto who's going to be part of it. I'm pretty sure he's still eligible for the World Juniors.
Yeah, if he's, I can't remember exactly what the cutoff is and what Pinto is for his birthday, but I think he'll be on the American roster. So that will be definitely another player to watch.
Oh, he just turned 20. So he won't be.
He won't be on the roster.
I can't remember if he was turning 19 or 20 this year.
Yeah, exactly. I knew he was right on the cusp. I just didn't know exactly where he was. But yeah, we'll have many players to watch at the World Juniors. I think Greg and Gannett are kind of outside shots, if we're being honest, but could potentially, slide into a roster if they impress their coaches or kind of take on a role that someone else isn't taking on their teams. But definitely, Sanderson, Stützle, and Jarventie now being kind of the 3 top players that we want to see at the World Juniors, just to get a taste of what these guys are going to be at the NHL level.
Oh, 100%. And I think, personally, I'm more interested for Jarventie now than I am for Stützle or Sanderson. I think we know what to expect out of Sanderson and what to expect out of Timmy Stützle. And I think they're not going to really impress in the way, like, how, as a 3rd and 5th overall pick, how are you going to impress? Like, really, unless you somehow you're going to disappoint more than you're going to impress, in my opinion, when you're picked that high in the draft. Jarventie was looked as a hard reach at 33, so he has a lot to prove at this. So I'm really interested to see how he stacks up to the players in his draft class, or a year older or a year younger.
Yeah, Jarventie was definitely the kind of home run swing that Dorian and Mann went for at 33, and even when they picked him, I was kind of saying, like, who is this guy? We passed on so many players in that spot that were still available, and I don't think anyone's saying that now. So, yeah, as you said, I think when players like Stützle and Sanderson will come in, they're going to have really lofty expectations on their teams. But a guy like Jarventie is relatively unknown unless you're, a hardcore Sens fan and you've been following along, all the prospects. And shout out to Sens Prospects on Twitter for, keeping us informed the whole time.
Yeah, man, that guy does amazing work.
Absolutely.
Amazing work.
Speaking of amazing work, Shane, what do you think of these retro jerseys? Some of them coming out, I wasn't expecting much initially. I was expecting them to be kind of a gimmick, kind of a 1 year kind of reverse retro. Okay, you're reaching for revenue. They're going to be lousy jerseys, but some of them coming out are looking fresh. What do you like the best so far about some of the new jerseys you've seen?
So the rumors are for Arizona, they're doing a reverse of that green, like steampunk looking coyote logo, which honestly the purple looks sick. Not gonna lie. The Anaheim Ducks. It's weird seeing teal as like a secondary color, instead of like a third color. But if it's a Wild Wing, like if it's a white, I'm all about Wild Wing. I think it was a great jersey, so I'm super excited for it. And then Calgary's if they're bringing back Blasty, and I hope they are. Those are my top three right now. Realistically, like there wasn't really anything in the Central that made me go, wow. I figured Colorado was going to do something Nordiques, and that's what they're doing. So that's kind of wow. I'm annoyed that Minnesota is doing the North Stars colors, and that Winnipeg is throwing it back to the 79. I just think there weren't for me as a historical point, like that's not part of your franchise's history. I don't know why you're doing it. They could have, Minnesota should have done it back, done a throwback to like their old school, like their first jerseys, but do it red, because everyone seemed to love that red color that they had a couple of years ago as their alternates. Don't get me wrong. My issue with the North Stars is if it's going to be the North Stars logo. I'm hoping it's that stylized M with the North Stars colors. I can go with that. I can vibe with it. And I mean, Hartford, right? Hartford, that white Hartford. I think everyone's been wanting it. So there's some that are really, really good, and then there's some that are really, really bad. And I think Nashville's is going to be one of them. Nashville's, I think they're going to get it wrong. And it's just that's going to be the worst of them all.
Yeah, I actually agree with almost everything you said there. For me, the top one is actually St. Louis. I just like how they threw in the red. It does look retro. It looks super cool if it ends up being, the one that they end up going with. But my top three, Arizona for sure is up there. I think it looks unbelievable if it's going to be anything like the drawings that I've seen. And Calgary, if they're going back to the classic, what's the logo called? Remind me.
Blasty the horse. Yeah. Blasty the flaming horse.
I know Flames fans absolutely love that logo, so they're gonna go hysterical for that. It looks beautiful.
I had this medium. I bought a medium off some guy, and then I ended up selling it for like $100 because I was just like, I like it, but that's one of those jerseys that I want to wear. My issue is I might have to break my own rule on this and get like a Kippersoft on the back of it if it's identical to what what they wore. I'm not much of like don't put names on a jersey that they've never worn, but I might just have to get a Kippersoft for it. Not gonna lie, if it's identical, I'll suck it up and deal with it. But yeah, Blasty. San Jose going to that gray, though, I think is going to look so nice. I love their retro look. Like their original look, it was always so much nicer. I'm just curious if they're going to use the OG logo or not for that one.
Yeah, with the shark biting the stick in half.
Yeah.
I don't know what the name is for it. But I know exactly what logo you're looking.
Like honestly, Pittsburgh should be nice. Pittsburgh, Washington. If Washington's going back to the Screaming Eagle, I'm going to be all about it. And then Columbus having a red jersey should be nice. I want to know if they're going to use their like the OG logo or if they're going to use the Cannon.
Oh yeah, that could be hype too. We should probably touch on Ottawa, I guess, since this is a Sens show.
I mean,
it's less interesting. I think it's most likely it's going to be a red version of the black one we're seeing now, right? Just reversed.
Oh, 100%. It has to be. It's the only logo that we haven't seen a red jersey in.
So you don't think they're going to do anything funky like
I don't think so. I don't think they'll risk it.
No. And it says specifically red and black. So I don't think, the one thing I was thinking about is maybe they could throw a white in with the red and black, a white stripe somewhere, and it will look super cool. But it doesn't appear like that's what they're going to do. I think they're just going to simply reverse the home black and make it red.
Yeah, I think with the new logo or going back, you shouldn't expect something like super crazy. I think they're going to play it safe, give us a red 2D jersey that we've never had before, and I love it. I think it's great. It's just simple. They've tried to be, you have the Senegal jersey, and then you have the Sens, like that weird Sens jersey that's very hit or miss. You have the Heritage O, both like the cream and the black that did really well. And then you came out with the Silver O that didn't really do that well. It's fans, and out of all 4 of those, 5 of those, the most simple of the Heritage O's. Sens fans like simple for the most part. They just like something simple, classic, clean. Nothing more simple, classic, and clean than a red and black jersey.
Yeah. Exactly what you said. It's not going to blow anyone away. I think it'll look cool. Like it'll just be kind of different to see a 2D in red because we've never had that before. But it's not going to blow me away if they just reverse the black to, red and black, as opposed to adding something a little bit different. But sometimes simple and clean, is what people want sometimes. It's not, throwing these weird stripes and lines in there and making it look kind of funky. So I don't mind keeping it clean.
Yeah, I'm going to get a black Batherson, but I might end up getting like a red Stitzel or something like that. Because I do like the black. I've always enjoyed the black jersey, and I'm happy Ottawa's gone back to the black. But I might end up getting that red reverse retro, especially if it's only 1 year. I feel like that's something like if it's 1 year. But here's the thing. My question, I'm curious about Toronto and Montreal. See, they've had the same color scheme and basically the same logo their entire history. Montreal is most likely going to be blue. I think that'll be sick, seeing a navy blue Montreal jersey. It seems like Toronto is going to a blue and silver kind of color. I'm kind of disappointed. I wish they would have done a St. Pat's, a green or a St. Pat's kind of throwback reverse, or a Toronto Arenas reverse, because that's really that's their part of their history, and I think that would have been cool.
Yeah, and something different, like blue and silver. Okay, you're not deviating too much from the white, really. So, it's not going to be vastly different from what people are expecting with the silver. Some of these jerseys are going to be hits. Some of them are going to be misses. It's cool. It's a good way to generate some revenue from a league that needs it right now. So I like the idea. I'm not sure who came up with, reverse retro. They could have just did retro and threw it back, but it's a neat idea. I think it'll work well for the NHL.
I think it was that some teams may, like Anaheim or San Jose, may not have wanted to release a full-on retro, because I think there are definitely teams that have had that ask for that retro look, but not the same color scheme. Like they wanted Ottawa a red 2D logo jersey is sick. I wouldn't have wanted another black 2D, or like I wouldn't have wanted like a black 3D Senegoth remake, because we've already had that. I much rather something that we haven't had before, and I think that was the whole point. Like for the Kings, it's the purple and gold colorway, which is fantastic, but it has the Gretzky era silver and black logo, or that's what it's expected, is to have that logo, which I think is cool because a lot of people were like, that logo was really nice. I think it would look really good on this colorway. And I think, here's the thing that I'll give the NBA credit for. Raptors have 5 jerseys for next season. They've released 3 of them. It looks like they're going to release a purple one and an OVO one at some point in the near future. People buy those jerseys every year. I think if the NHL really wanted to make money, you make these jerseys $200 flat for a name jersey. You make it $150, $140 for a blank. People are going to buy them, and they're going to buy them every year because they're $140. The NBA is $130 for what do they call it now? Like the Nike just general fan jerseys. You know, the authentic ones are still like $300, but more people feel comfortable spending $130 on a jersey they like yearly than they do $250+.
Yeah, the new Sens jerseys are ridiculously expensive. Like I was personally waiting until the price came down because I can't fathom spending $300 on a jersey. It is ridiculous. They do need to come up with, like you said, a system where they could produce more jerseys and have them at a lower value. They do have the Fanatics brand that, you know, runs a little bit cheaper, but they're so far from the authentic that to me, it's like, I don't even want to buy one.
Yeah, I mean, it's $100 different. That gets you an Adidas versus like a Fanatics. Like realistically, the quality is greater. Like the quality difference between the two is very noticeable, and you're getting a better jersey for $50 more because it's $150 regular price for a blank Fanatic, $200 for a blank Adidas. Or you can buy an NBA jersey, a Nike NBA jersey, which, yes, has less material. That's the big thing. But, you know, the numbers are still heat pressed. NHL jerseys aren't stitched. They're all heat pressed. So it's like you're paying for the sleeves, basically what you're paying for. That extra $120 gives you 2 sleeves.
Yeah, exactly. We need to talk about something that happened this past week. What do you make of Timmy Stützle back skating for the first time, or at least showing a video of him skating for the first time since the injury?
See, I wonder, because I wonder if this was the first time he was on skates with a stick in his hand. Because it was a wrist injury, so like I think, why would he not be on skates through a wrist injury? Like he could still skate, he just couldn't handle a stick. So I feel like may have been his first practice with a stick in his hand, which would line up for about the 6-week mark. He got hurt, early October?
Yeah.
Shortly after the draft. So probably like 3 weeks into the injury. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. He's not shooting pucks, and the minute, like, that's going to be really the telltale sign is like when he starts shooting pucks. But it's a good sign. I think it's an impressive sign. I think he'll be like middle December is really where I hope he's back participating, full contact, shooting the puck and all that.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking to his strengths, if you've seen the video and if you've skated at all, you'll know just how talented of a skater he is just by watching that little sample, because that edge work is just phenomenal.
He looks so slow in it, though. Like, if you didn't realize it was edge work, like if you didn't realize that that's what he was working on, you would just look at him and be like, man, he's a slow skater.
Yeah, but then I agree. I don't think he was working on, acceleration or speed in that video. You're right. So you kind of have to know what the coach has kind of asked him to do beforehand. But I think you can appreciate, if you've skated before, you can appreciate that edge work, and it is like, it's top notch.
100%. And I mean, I think right now in the NHL, edge work and explosiveness is more important. I mean, probably just as important as speed, but if you have a guy who can and bring it back to Jarventie. His first 3 strides now are ridiculous. Like the amount of power you can get out of your first 3 strides is crazy. So personally, I don't care if he can, go up and down the ice super quick if his first 3 steps are slow. And I think that's what made a guy like McDavid so crazy and so hard to defend, is because his 3 steps are unbelievable, but he can still beat you if he messes up those first 3 steps.
Yeah, it's all about transition in today's NHL. And like you said, if you don't have the acceleration, it doesn't really matter what your top speed is because you're never going to be able to use it. So to be an effective transition player, you have to have those first few steps. You have to have that pull away speed in transition because you're moving from defense to offense. That's when you catch D's off. That's when you catch them off stride. So you can go around a guy if you have acceleration. If you have top speed, you rarely get to use it without the acceleration first. I mean, the acceleration will build your top speed up. I mean, you just have to maintain after you've got to a certain speed.
100%. And I'm excited to see what Timmy Stützle can do on a North American ice, especially playing with a guy like Brady Tkachuk. Because if he's playing center, most likely playing with a guy like with Brady Tkachuk. Personally, I don't see it working. I don't see Timmy Stützle working with Brady Tkachuk unless Brady Tkachuk has worked tremendously on his skating.
Oh yeah, just for the fact that Tkachuk will be steps behind Stützle, I guess, especially in transition.
100%. Like yeah. I think, like personally, if I'm looking at Stützle, I think a guy like Matherson, who has that good explosive speed, he's not the fastest, but he has that good 3 steps, and putting him on the wing with a guy like Jarventie or Formanton or Balcers who have the steps and the speed to match him. I honestly don't see him working quite out. Like I can see this being like a Jason Spezza, Bobby Ryan situation where Bobby Ryan just wasn't able to keep up. He was just a step slower than where Spezza needed him to be.
Yeah, it just looks great on paper, but then when it actually gets to the ice, it doesn't translate as well. I actually have Stützle lining up with Dadonov. Like I just like the two together. I think that would be a terrific duo if Stützle is anywhere near what we think he could be this year. I see him feeding Dadonov like all day, and Dadonov loves to, as we mentioned with Jarventie, to hide out in those quiet areas close to the net. And I think Stützle, watching video from him in the DL, he's able to get his teammates the puck in that area specifically. So I could see him and Dadonov working out terrifically.
Yeah, so do I. And I mean, Dadonov has like not very like underrated speed, but he's a lot quicker than people give him credit for. Like I watched a couple of his highlights when he was with Barkov and Huberdeau, and like Huberdeau and Barkov are quick skaters, and he was staying up there. So even though he's on the plus side of 30, he should be able to keep up with a guy like Stützle. And hey, maybe that's what benefits Tkachuk. Maybe having him on a line with Stützle and Dadonov, because he can kind of come into the behind the play, kind of get lost that way, and just kind of slot in front of the net. So maybe it works, but I'm really interested to see how DJ Smith works this to his advantage in the near future.
Yeah, I was always of the opinion for Tkachuk that he needs a good play driver to really take his game to the next level. And I think if Stützle becomes that play driver and really takes up all of the attention, Brady could easily sneak in, like you said, just trailing a little bit behind, sneak into those quiet spots. And we know how well he gets to the net. I mean, he's an agitator. So if Stützle could just kind of hold off on some of that pressure until Brady enters the zone a little bit later, it could work out in the future. I don't know that Stützle is going to be that good at doing that immediately, but I think down the road, Stützle and Brady could potentially work together if they transition Timmy to the center of the ice.
100%. And I think for me, it's more about who do we have as well, right? Like if you have a guy like Formanton, can Pinto or Norris keep up with that speed on a game-to-day basis? And if they can't, and Stützle can, you're going to see that kind of movement, which I think Sens fans are going to lose their mind at if you were to see Stützle as a second or third line center. lined up with like Formanton, but getting 20 some minutes a night. I think Sens fans would lose their mind if that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want your third overall pick. You want him to play as much as he possibly can, and I think he will eventually. I think they'll have to find a way to spread some of the scoring out. If they are kind of top heavy, it's not going to work. But I do like the prospects coming up. As you mentioned, Formanton, I think, is underrated. We still have Norris coming up. We have Pinto coming up. I mean, Colin White could take a step forward. You have all these guys, Batherson, so many young guys that really you could spread that scoring out if they become the players that Ottawa hopes they will become. But that's why we're not too sure of this if this team's going to be a contender or if they're going to be kind of a bubble team like they were. And that's what'll make all the difference if these prospects can develop into the players that we think they can.
100%. And we're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, we have to talk Atlantic Division or Canada Division, NHL, AHL, because that's kind of where it seems it's heading now. We'll also talk about Colin White a little bit more. And yeah, so we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. So stay put.
Some enforcer-based podcasting coming at you, brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network.
And now Semenko out in front of the goal, pounding away at Joe Kocher, who's down on the ice, holding the back of his head.
Actually what really surprised me, especially with Twitter being like Leaf Nation, was Grimson over Colton Orr. That voting really surprised me. I didn't think that would happen.
Don't forget to catch the Fourth Line Voice podcast wherever you find your podcasts, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network.
Marc Bergevin. And everybody goes on and on with the whole PK thing and blah, and he hated him because he doesn't like fun and blah, blah, blah. I have heard from a few people that Marc Bergevin's hilarious.
No, this guy was a riot. He would have to be at the bar and he's like, oh, I just had a penis colada. And the girls would like give a double take and be like, what? He's like, yeah, I had the penis colada, it's not bad, this.
Enforcer-based podcasting wherever you get podcasts from.
And we are back. And remember, we are sponsored by Customized Sports, your one-stop shop for any jersey kit for your blank jersey. I have a bunch of them. If you're watching live on YouTube or on Twitter, the two jerseys behind me, the kits were provided by Customized Sports. Fantastic quality, super easy instructions to follow. And yeah, definitely go check them out. Customized Sports on eBay, and they have a website, customizedsportscanada.com. And we're back. We got, Canada Division. That is the biggest topic right now in terms of NHL, AHL play this year. We'll start off with the AHL play because it's a little bit trickier. They're talking about Manitoba, the Moose, Laval Rockets, the Toronto Marlies, and the Belleville Senators playing in a division against each other, which wouldn't be too crazy since Montreal or Laval, Ottawa, or Belleville and Toronto all play against each other throughout the year anyways because they're all in the same division. The big news is that Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver do not want to move their team north of the border in case because of expenses. So it makes things a little bit interesting for them in case they want to call people up. But we'll start with the AHL. Do you see a 4-team division really working?
No, it's a little too small. For my liking, you're going to see the same teams over and over and over, and it will get a little bit dry. It's an interesting season, again, thanks to COVID. We are where we are, but I don't see it working, but it is what it is. Again, it's not a perfect world that we live in. You're going to have to make a sacrifice somewhere. A 4-team division would be honestly a little bit disappointing. We expect big things out of Belleville, certainly this season. So to see just an asterisk assigned to anything that they could potentially win thanks to a 4-team division would be a little bit disappointing from my perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, the original divisions are like 9 teams? It's like the North Division has 9 teams because it's big. The Devils affiliate. You have Utica, which is the Vancouver affiliate. Rochester, and I think Cleveland are the other 4 teams. And I think there's one more, and I can't remember. I think it's Laval, Belleville, Toronto, Utica, Binghamton, Cleveland. There's 2 others that I can't remember. But yeah, a 9-team division is ridiculous. But, they only have 4 divisions. It's like 9 or 8 teams. They were leading when the season canceled. But yeah, I'd be very disappointed in a 4-game or a 4-team division when it comes to the overall look of the league. Because like you said, you're playing 72 games against the same 4 teams. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it wouldn't be, from an entertaining standpoint, it wouldn't really be anything outside of here's a team to develop your prospects on, and they're just playing in this kind of Mickey Mouse division. But it's 8 teams, so you hit them all.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, so last year Belleville was top in their division at 38 wins, 20 losses, ahead of Rochester. So yeah, it would be disappointing. I want to see, a proper division, and I'd like to see whatever sacrifice they have to make. I'd like to see it. I know the teams don't want to travel. Teams like Edmonton, Vancouver, they have teams in the States. They don't want to travel across the border and have to pay those fees. So it's understandable from a financial aspect and from a COVID aspect, I guess, because nothing is the same right now, but it's disappointing.
100%, I agree. And I mean, but realistically, how much would it cost? Like, if you're Utica, you move to Vancouver, you play out of Vancouver for the time being. It's the same with Edmonton and Calgary. You just be able to move them to your city and just play them out of your city. It would make more of a frustrating scheduling wise, but I mean, it would be doable. It's not like you'd have to go out and rent a whole new arena for them.
Yeah, I just kind of wonder what it does to the contracts. Some of the players getting paid in American dollars versus Canadian dollars. I'm
pretty sure everyone gets paid in American. The contracts are all American. I think they just convert it at some point. But yeah.
Right. Is there not like a tax situation? There's something that I know NHL players were complaining about, when it comes to playing in Canada, you're taxed a little bit more heavily.
Well, yeah, but because you're paying income tax, and you're paying the federal and the provincial tax, and just like how you and I pay taxes in Ontario and for Canada, they would pay taxes in Alberta and Canada, kind of thing.
Right, so you're doubled up a little bit.
Yeah, instead of just paying, I think you pay, if you're a Canadian, you're paying California tax, which I don't think is any in terms of income. I think you have property tax, but I don't think they have income tax in California. So you're not actually being taxed much in California. All your taxes are in Canada because you're a Canadian citizen. You still get taxed, but you would get most of it back on your return, kind of thing.
Right. So yeah, I mean, exactly what you said. Whatever those hurdles are, they don't seem insurmountable. Like they should be able to make something work at the AHL level, and it would be disappointing if they didn't.
100%. And like, you're Vancouver. Like, realistically, what would that mean for Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary? Like, you have players in Utica, Stockton, and Bakersfield. Stockton and Bakersfield both being in California, and then you have Utica, New York. If you have to quarantine for 14 days, you're not going to be able to call someone up if there's an all-Canadian division. Like, it's just not going to work.
That's another really good point. I think it would make it easier if they were within Canada in that Canadian division. If you have to quarantine for 14 days, I mean, you're kind of stuck. Like you said, they would have to run with a pretty lofty roster in Vancouver and just have guys practicing with the team but not actually playing to have call-up situations.
I wonder if this would mean that you would have expanded rosters, because if you were to have expanded rosters, that would make things completely different, especially for Ottawa. Because if you're adding, I don't know, let's say you were to add playoff style, it was what 28 roster spots?
Yeah.
And unlimited goalies. So if you were to run that, like, because let's say there was no AHL season. For whatever reason, they decided to cancel the AHL season. You were having like 30 players. Like, that would be crazy because you would want those players playing. You wouldn't want them on the bench every game. It would make things so much more interesting in terms of like, in that way, I would keep Stützle in Germany. I just let him play in the Dell and whatnot. But it would make things super interesting to see what would happen if there was expanded rosters.
And I'm glad you touched on that because I do kind of wonder. Like, Sen's Twitter was in a fuzzy kind of panic once again when Ottawa announced that they signed Michael Haley. But I do kind of wonder, maybe they have like some information, and we might have just touched on it, where they are going to have expanded rosters. And if you want anyone being on a fifth line or being your extra players not really playing, it's players like Michael Haley that are not in a long-term picture on your team. You want to develop your players. You don't want them just practicing with the team and not getting game reps. So to me, the Haley signing, although to me it was no big deal because it's just like another competitive.
It's AHL depth too, right? It's a one-way, two-way. It's a 1-year, two-way contract. Like, it is what it is. It's just we need players in Belleville.
Yeah, and people seem to forget, what we're running into with the COVID situation, and exactly that example that you were talking about. If we're talking about expanded rosters, much like the playoffs are, you want guys like Michael Haley and some of these veteran players being on your kind of fifth line as a replacement player that you could just slide into your roster, as opposed to someone who you really want to develop. You want them to get game situations. So,
and I mean, it also makes it easier. Let's say a guy like Austin Watson gets hurt. Okay, well, are you going to really pencil in Abramov as your fourth line winger? Are you going to move Connor Brown down a line? Like, no, you're not going to do that. You want a guy who can slot in at the fourth line. And that's a guy like Michael Haley. So it's just like, we're not going to replace a fourth line guy with a top six prospect. It's just not going to happen. If Batherson gets hurt, they're not going to slot in Michael Haley. They'll slot in Abramov kind of thing. Like,
yeah, it makes sense. Per role, whatever the role is on the team. Like you said, if Watson's hurt, it makes more sense to slide in a Haley because he brings a lot of the same characteristics. But if a Batherson gets hurt, you bring in a skilled player that could potentially replace what Batherson's going to bring offensively. So it makes perfect sense to me.
And I mean, if you're in an all-Canadian division, Haley can go in against Calgary and Edmonton, who have, Zach Kajian and Milan Lucic on their disposal. We don't really have that physical. Realistically, outside of Austin Watson, we don't have that, like, or maybe even Eric Goodbranson being generous there. We don't really have that, like, Scott Sabourin, Chris Neal kind of player anymore. And I know the league is kind of going against it, but you still need one or two guys because there are still teams that have those guys. If you're in the Central Division, you have to, or the Pacific Division, you have, Ryan Reeves for Vegas. You need someone to go against him. So if you're going a team against Milan Lucic or Zach Kajian, you want someone who can go pound for pound for them, and that's Michael Haley.
Yeah, and you have a young team in Ottawa. You want them to feel comfortable playing and using their skill, and you want them to go out there and do that without, facing the challenge of a big hulking guy kind of running them and getting away with it. So teams that play Ottawa will know if they try to run their star players and their star prospects, they're not going to get away with it. They're going to have to face the music. And I don't mind it for a few seasons. I think if possible, finding those unicorns like a Wilson, Colin Wilson, who can both play hockey and be that physical aspect is, something special and different nowadays. But at the same time, Watson isn't the worst hockey player either. So I think having a guy like him on your fourth line doesn't hurt you in any way.
No, and I mean, I think Kachuk's going to drop the gloves as much as we might not want him to. He's going to do it. We still have a guy like Parker Kelly in Belleville who can play hockey and be a pest. And I think if it is expanded rosters, we're going to have a lot of, bottom six guys who can still produce some points. Obviously, you're not going to expect him to be, a point a game kind of player or producing at that kind of level. But, I feel confident in having a guy like Parker Kelly on my fourth line knowing that I can put him out there in an offensive situation and he can deliver.
Yeah, no doubt. And shifting gears here a little bit, but staying on the same subject matter, really. In the NHL, they're talking about Canadien Division, as we were just talking about in the AHL. And we have vastly different lists. So Shane and I made our own lists and thought it would be fun to kind of dive into what we think the end result would be if the standings stayed Canadien Division throughout the whole season. How would we rank them? So, Shane, who do you have at number 7 in a Canadian Division?
So for me, I have Vancouver, and it's just their goaltending is going to be fine. Hopefully Demko is going to be great, but I think, losing the players they lost, Stetcher, Toffoli, and Markstrom, and I mean, Markstrom, hopefully you can make an argument of upgrade, but I think overall they lost a lot of key components to last year's playoff team. And I don't think in a Canadian division where almost every team has gotten better, it's not, especially if it's a lot of back-to-backs, I don't feel comfortable with Calgary being able to overcome. I think they're going to start out of the gate slow. I think that's the problem, is that they're going to start out slow and it'll be too much of a deficit for them to overcome.
Yeah, especially in a shortened season. So for me at number 7, sorry, Sens fans, but I still have us finishing last in an all-Canadian division. But I will say that in the Atlantic, I did have Ottawa potentially passing the Florida Panthers. So in an all-Canadian division, I just think it's a little bit too strong for Ottawa, if I'm being honest with it. I do like the offseason that we've had. I still think we're going to make forward strides. So, at the end of the day, when we're talking about a full league standings, I don't see them at the bottom of the league any longer. I think they're going to pass some teams overall. But when we're talking about a Canadian division, I think some of the teams are just a little bit stronger than what an Atlantic division would have. So I have Ottawa finishing 7th.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, if there's one team that's so hit or miss in this, it's Ottawa, because the additions they've added could turn out great. They could play above their head, or they could not. And I think that it's one of those teams that's very hit or miss. At number 6, I got the Oilers, and I know it's foolish to say, McDavid, Draisaitl, and Nugent Hopkins, who has quietly become a really good player, and then you added in a guy like Turris. They brought back Ennis. I don't feel comfortable with Koskinen and Smith. If that's your 1-2 combo, I personally don't feel comfortable with it. They weren't really good last year. They struggled in the playoffs. If there's a lot of back-to-backs, I don't feel comfortable with this tandem being able to steal them games. McDavid and forward group are fine, and their depth scoring should get better, but I don't think they'll be able to keep the puck out of their net enough in this all-Canadian division.
Yeah, well said. I have the Oilers as a complete wild card as well. I just think you don't know what you're going to get with them. They didn't really add enough, in my opinion, in the offseason. So I have them a spot above where you have them. I have them at 5th. Montreal, though, is my 6th place team in a Canadian division, and I know we're vastly different here, and I'll explain myself. I do like their offseason. I won't lie. Like, they added Edmondson on the back end. They added Toffoli up front, I think is a big addition, but they also moved on from Domi, who was a point producer, and they got someone who just isn't really to the same level in Anderson. So I think they had a good offseason, but I think people use the whole Carey Price thing a little too generously. They have Carey Price, so they could, ultimately they could be the best team in that division any given year. And while I think that's true, and they demonstrated that with a small sample size in the playoffs, I really don't think they moved the needle enough for me. And I like some of their young players too. I think Suzuki had an unbelievable playoff. I think Kotkaniemi had a really good, surprising playoff. And I do like the makeup of their team, but not enough for me to suggest that they're going to leap some of these other teams.
That's totally fair. I have Montreal way too high in terms of my rankings. For us, I think I have them quite a bit above you, but I'll explain when we get there. But I can understand where you're coming from. I understand that there's still a lot of question marks. That Domi for Anderson is a very big question mark there as well. But I got to jump to number 5, and I got Ottawa. And I know people might say, "Oh, I got a homer. That this is a homer pick." I just don't see. Realistically, 5, 6, and 7, you can they can all mix and match. Like realistically, it's just I think Matt Murray's going to have a dominant. He's going to have a bounce back year. He's no longer in Pittsburgh. He'll come in as the number 1. And I made this list based off of the amount of rumors surrounding the amount of back-to-backs that we're going to play. It's going to be a lot of back-to-backs, a lot of 3 games in 4 nights kind of situations. At least that's kind of what they're hinting at. If that's the case, I feel really confident in Matt Murray and Marcus Hogberg being that 1-2 punch for Ottawa. I think our offense has gotten better. Dadonov is a vastly huge upgrade. I think Galchenyuk's going to have a solid year because I think he's going to be put in a position to succeed. I think Kachuk's going to take that next step. We're going to see a guy like Balcers or Abramov or Batherson take that next step. I think there's going to be a lot better power play. So I have them sitting 5th because I feel like their goaltending is better. Their defense is still shaky. I think that's their biggest weakness right now. But I think their finishing talent, they're going to generate more chances and finish more chances on the power play and on even strength than they did last year. And with the healthy upgrade on goaltending, I think Ottawa slots in at 5th, just getting ahead of Edmonton.
I love it, Shane. It's hard to argue that any of these teams on the list, maybe outside of Calgary, had a better offseason than Ottawa. So I like the rise. I think it would be a rapid rise. I mean, if they're doing an expanded playoff, that might be a playoff position where you have them. So, to have a rise that high would be just a huge surprise and something that, obviously as Sens fans, we would welcome at this stage, because I think we're kind of moving on from wanting the best prospect every year in the draft and kind of moving on to wanting to see some wins come. So if they're able to win that much in this strong division, because it is relatively strong, I would be super impressed. For me, at number 5, I had Edmonton, which I think I mentioned, and it's for basically all the same reasons you already mentioned. I just don't believe that they made enough moves in the offseason to significantly improve their team. And they're just kind of hit and miss. Outside of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, the Oilers are just kind of hit and miss. I'm not too sure about them. They could be really good. They could be really bad. And that's kind of how it's been in Edmonton for quite a few years now. Ahead of them, I have Winnipeg. I have the Jets as a team that, again, didn't really add anything significant in the offseason. Defensively, after losing Dustin Byfuglien, they just haven't really been the same team, in my opinion. I know he was, quoted as a lazy player or a player that didn't work hard, but Byfuglien was a presence back there that, quite frankly, the Jets just can't replace. And it's really hurt them. I love their goaltending. I think Hellebuck is one of the best goalies in the league, and I do love some of their offense. That's why I have them, ranked 4th on my list, because I still think, with Scheifele, Laine, even though his feelings are hurt, some of these players, Blake Wheeler, are still really good players. Kyle Connor, there's quite a few of them. So I have them high enough, but that's where I have them.
I think this is the only one that we agreed on, and I have Winnipeg at 4th for about the same reasons. I think Hellebuck's going to continue to improve. I like the addition of Stastny. I think that's an underrated move by them. I think that Laine could have a bounce back year. Scheifele and Wheeler are going to dominate. Nikolai Ehlers and Kyle Connor are forced to be reckoned with. I think overall their forward group is very solid. Goaltending, outside of Hellebuck, it's kind of shaky, but I have enough faith in Hellebuck that even on back-to-backs, he's going to, especially early in the season, I think if they can get out to an early jump, they'll be fine. He's been off for such a long time. He'll want to play as much as possible. So I feel like Hellebuck's going to get a brunt of the load. I like this team. I think they're going to win in shootouts. There's going to be games that I would not be surprised if they win a 6-5 game. They'll probably win more 6-5 games than they do 2-1 games. personally. But I have them as well as fourth. At number 3 for me, I have Montreal. And this is kind of where we got different because you put Montreal at 6th. I have them at 3. I like Edmonton. I think Toffoli and as much as Anderson's a downgrade necessarily from Domi wants to play center. He's not a right winger. They needed that right wing depth, which is why they went out and signed Toffoli and got Anderson. I think he'll fit nicely in what Claude Julien is going to do. He reminds me a lot of a better version of Nathan Horton. And if he can be healthy, if he can stay healthy, I think we should see an uptick in production from him. But I'm really banking on, and I think the team itself is banking on Kotkaniemi, Suzuki, and Poling really taking that next step next year. And if they do, this team is going to finish third because they'll have the offense. Their defense is fantastic. And I think another underrated addition, Jake Allen as their backup goaltender. Like, I know you mentioned like the price effect. Jake Allen coming in as a number 2 goaltender, a former number 1. He took the job from Binnington in the playoffs from St. Louis. That is going to cause a lot of havoc because now you have 2 really good goaltenders in your net. And, they could end up being higher on that list if those goaltenders stand up and their offense produces. I'm not worried about their defense. I think Petrie and Sherratt and Weber and co are going to have a fantastic year. If that offense can find consistency and that goaltending can live up to the hype, this team's going to be a top 3 team in the Canadian division and probably should be considered a cup contender, a borderline cup contender. But I would feel comfortable if they were going to the playoffs. And depending on that matchup, they could get to the second or third round relatively easily.
All right. That's where we're very different. We're thinking very differently. I do not have Montreal as a cup contender, despite the improved goaltending. I like that stance because I did mention that they added Jake Allen.
So real quick, Senators have just released their images for the Sens retro jersey.
Oh, we got to get
retro. So we'll get back to this list real quickly. It does just look like a red and black version of what they have going on. But yeah, it looks so sick. It looks clean. It looks crisp. I'm about it.
Actually, yeah, now that I'm seeing it, and it is going to be, I think, exactly what you said. It's going to be the red version of the black jersey that we currently have. But man, just looking at that S on the shoulder, that could be fantastic. That looks really good.
And Montreal's going blue. Florida has this weird. It's weird, but it looks nice.
Yeah, we got like a bit of gold in there. I see.
Tampa's going back to their 04 jersey. I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, the classic.
Yeah, first cup win. I'm not surprised. Oh my god, that ugly bear. Why are they bringing that bear back?
Oh man, yeah. Some of these are going to be hits. Some of them are going to be misses.
I'm so excited for the Buffalo head for Buffalo in that blue and gold. Oh man, super stoked for that one.
Yeah, the Bruins is it's a hideous. Oh my goodness, that bear.
I love it. Oh, and they're going. I know what you. Yeah, and then Toronto is going with that blue and gray.
Like what is that bear on the?
Yeah, I don't get it. I know, right? Like what? But like, okay, seriously though, like that.
That's classic.
I'm so excited.
That is, but this bear, oh my goodness.
Yo, but this
higher. Like,
but that was an actual logo.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was an actual logo.
I don't know. That just looks awful to me, but
in Detroit, man, I'm stoked for these. I think honestly the Atlantic might have the best ones. Overall.
Yeah, pretty nice ones. There's Toronto's. They've got there's the silver and blue. You won't see it well on the camera, but
yeah, no, these are actually really nice. I'm not even gonna lie. I dig these hard.
I guess we'll get the official release on the 16th then. Is that what we're looking at? Because I thought we rumored the November 16th that I thought it was the leak, or the basically the preview for the Atlantic coming out on the 16th. But that's
I think people may have thought they weren't going to do it on Sunday. They were going to wait until the Monday. But no, honestly, they're beautiful. Love them so much. I might just say screw it and get. I want to see the numbers. I want to see how they do the numbering on it. But back to what we were talking about before. Who did you have at number 3?
Yeah. So my third place team, I had Vancouver, despite the losses that they've kind of had this offseason. They have lost a lot of players, and they've all went to Calgary pretty much. But at number 3, I have Vancouver, just because I think their core is young. I really like Hughes. I'm really big on him, and Pettersson, of course. So I see those players taking a forward stride. And to me, that's why Vancouver still has to be considered one of the best teams in a Canadian division, just because their core is still really young. They did lose some players. I have faith in Demko. I think he's really good. They added Holtby. I think Demko could be a number 1 goalie as early as next year. So I wasn't too disappointed that they lost Markstrom. And I like the rest of their roster. Like I just like the makeup of their roster. Defensively, maybe they're not going to be so strong. But offensively, I think they'll be pretty good, specifically on the power play. So I have them at 3.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. And again, they could just have a really good year despite the losses. At 2, I have the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't think their defense has gotten really any better. I think losing you lost CC and Barry and replaced them with TJ Brody. Yeah. Don't know why I forgot his name for a second. Yeah. You replace him with TJ Brody. I think Brody's an upgrade over Barry in terms of he fits the system better. But I don't think their 4 through 6 is any better than it was last year. And their goaltending is questionable still. Like outside of Anderson, I don't feel like Jack Campbell can do it. I don't really see how I think then they've added Aaron Dell and Michael Hutchinson. And then forward wise, you added Joe Thornton. So you got slower on your bottom 6. You got rid of Kapanen and got slower on your and you got rid of Andre Johnson and then Kapanen and then added Spezza and Thornton. You got in slower on your bottom 6. They have a lot of question marks, but the thing is their top 4 is going to get them wins. They're just going to outscore some teams. That's just how it's going to happen. Frederik Andersen is going to be Frederik Andersen. He's going to win them some games. But I have them second because I think they're overall their top end talent is better than anyone else in the league or the Canadian division. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they faltered and they're a little bit lower on the list.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said. I didn't love their offseason either. Number 2 for me, I have Calgary. I have loved their offseason. I think they did get significantly better, and they were already a pretty good team, in my opinion. So they had a bit of a down year offensively last year. I think they'll rebound from that this year. I have them second, and I really do see Calgary being one of the best teams, not only in the Canadian division, but perhaps in the league coming up this season. I think this core, this is the year for them. I really think they're in their prime, in their window, with some of the additions they made. Tanev defensively, basically all Canucks, Markstrom and net. To me, goaltending was the biggest question mark, and I think they addressed it. They got a really good goaltender. We'll see how they do. I have them second. I think they really have potential to win this division, but that's where I see them.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, for me, I have Calgary at number 1. They're my first number 1 in the Canadian division. I love their additions. I think Markstrom gives them a solid goaltender that they really haven't had since Kiprusoff. Him and Riddick should be a good 1-2 combo. They've added some really good depth forward-wise and defensively. I think Monahan and Goudreau are going to have, and Lindholm are all going to step up. I think you're going to see a rise in Hanifin. Kachuk is going to Kachuk. I think overall that team has gotten a lot better, and I think they're going to bounce back. Goaltending, their biggest weakness the last couple of years has just been addressed. I wouldn't be surprised if they're I wouldn't be surprised if they're number one. I wouldn't be surprised if they're top 5 in the league.
Yeah, I see it the same way with Calgary. We just had our top 2 reversed. Obviously, I have Toronto number 1. I'm not super happy about it, but but regular season wise in this division, I think, as you were saying, for Winnipeg, outscoring their opponents 6-5 every night. I could see that happening. I could see a reaction on your face too. So I'm more curious about that than talking good things about the Leafs.
Sorry, just on Twitter still, and one of the things that popped up, Locked On Sense podcast, great guys.
Yeah.
They just, great idea. I didn't even notice it. The shoulder patch on the Sens jersey is the wing is red. So does that mean the logo is going to have the red trim instead of the gold trim?
Is it gold on the black jerseys though?
The black, I think so.
Is the cape? Because I thought the cape was always on the S. I thought the cape was always.
I thought they changed it to gold this year.
Yeah.
I thought to match the new jersey.
We gotta examine that a little bit.
But if they come out with the original logo with that like red cape,
yeah, that's different. And if you notice the original logo too from the 90s, it has the Ottawa Senators around. Like it spells out Ottawa Senators as opposed to the Laurels that they went with.
So maybe they go with that logo, which would be sick.
Could be. Yeah, that would be a bit of a difference. That we
no, it's gold. I'm on the Ottawa team shop and the jersey's gold.
What a catch by them. Good catch. Because that's not something that I would have caught. So
no, neither did I.
And also on Sens Twitter, if you're on it, check out Everyday Sens because he always does great jersey mashups, and he's already got one out based on what the red would look like. It looks pretty sick with Brady Tkachuk.
Yo, if they have the red, like the original logo, bro, that'd be sick.
Yeah.
Because he has it with the gold. I think they'll do it with the red.
Yeah, look, it honestly, it looks better than I thought it would. So I'm happy with it. I would buy one based on what we see so far. I think it would look amazing. Just imagine having all 3 up on your wall. I mean, that would look terrific. Got the white, the black, and the red in between it.
Oh man, I might have to do it.
That would be a fortune, but money well spent, maybe.
Yeah, probably. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, you were saying, let's just wrap this up real quick. We're over the hour mark. You said the Toronto Maple Leafs are number 1. Sorry to interrupt you again.
No, there's more pressing things when it comes to Senators news that we quite frankly would rather get to than talking good things about the Leafs. So yeah, I had them number 1. They're interchangeable with a few teams there. I have them number 1 in the regular season. I have them falling out of the playoffs relatively quickly, as they always do. So take that, Leaf fans, if you're listening. I don't know why you would be. But there you go. We need to get into over-under on Colin White.
So yeah, we'll just do a quick rundown of all the lists. I used the Blasty logo because I just wanted to use it because there's talk of it and I love that logo. So these are our top 10s. It'll be posted on Twitter and Instagram after the episode is released tomorrow on Monday. But yeah, we'll do the over-under. And you picked this week's over and under based off, if you listen to our last episode, you should know exactly who our over-under is on this week. But yeah, let you introduce the over-under for us.
For sure. I thought it would be a fun one to go with just because Colin White's had 2 very different seasons. His rookie season was very productive, but he was playing with Mark Stone. So a lot of people want to put that as an asterisk beside what he did that season. And this past season, he had a down year, but he was injured. So you have to be fair and put that asterisk beside this season. But Colin White, 38.5, I believe, is the number that I thought would be a pretty fair one to debate on. Over, under. I see it. I'm going under on this, Shane. What do you got for me before I explain why? Where are you going on 38.5?
If we're doing an 82 game season, I'm saying the over, and in a shortened season, let's say it's like 48 games, I'm going to take the under. I think he has the potential. Honestly, Wouldn't be surprised if he gets top line minutes. He'll probably be playing in the top 6 to start the season if he's healthy. He had 20. He had 13 points in the last 28 games of the regular season. So he can produce, and I think he will produce if given that role. But in a shortened season, I'm going to give under the under. In a full 82 games, I'm going to take the over, and I'm going to put him in a full 82 at 44 points.
Wow, that's a nice season. That would be a really nice bounce back season for Colin White at a full 82 games. I have him under at a full 82. And it's not because I'm not high on Colin White. I like some of the things that he does. I like the style that he plays with, but I think he's worked himself into more of a third line role with the team. And I see players on the depth chart that are probably going to pass him really soon, if not this season. So to me, it's about role with Colin White. Is he going to get the number one power play minutes anymore? Probably not. There's more offensive players. If Galchenyuk is a guy who has a really good season, I think he would be slotted ahead of Colin White on the power play. Dadonov is another addition. Timmy Stützle, if he's coming up and eventually transitioning to center, there's just too many players for me to say that Colin White's going to get a prominent role any longer. So I'm going under on this one.
Yeah, I know that's fair. But I think DJ has shown that, if you show him you deserve the minutes, you're going to get them. And I think we're going into camp. There is no true number one center. No one took it last year. And so he's going to go in there and be like, all right, who wants it? And if Colin White can show in there and be like, hey, I want it, and perform well with Tkachuk and Dadonov, because realistically, if we're going to pencil in any positions, it's Tkachuk and Dadonov, your top left and right winger. Connor Brown is going to slot in as either your second or third line right winger. And outside of that, and Anisimos probably going to be your fourth line center. Nick Paul, your fourth line winger, and Austin Watson, your fourth line right winger. Your fourth line is relatively set. No, outside of that, you have five or six positions that are really set in stone. I think you're going to have a good camp. You're going to have a good open competition. And I would not be surprised if Colin White wins that battle. I wouldn't be surprised if he's been given the most opportunity to do so.
Yeah. I think when we reviewed our lineups, I did have him starting as my number one center, for the simple fact that, as of right now, he's probably the most likely guy to play that role. But long-term, I'm not sure how that works out. And even short-term this season, I'm not sure how that works out. I'll give him 34 points for the season, which to me isn't a bad season if he's getting, if he's averaging 15 minutes a night.
Agreed. I personally would be okay with that. If he's averaging if he's averaging 13, third line minutes, I expect third line production.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what we're going to get out of a guy like what if he is in that role. But I just don't see them they gave him too big of a contract to put him as a third line right now.
Yeah, he's on a huge contract based on that first really good rookie season. Time will tell if that's going to be a bad contract for them. Hopefully not. Hopefully he can bounce back.
Considering our cap space, I don't think it will be.
Yeah, it's not likely going to affect them anyway, at least in the short term. So it's not a huge deal to get hung up on the contract, and he's a very serviceable player anyway.
100%. I like him. I think he'll do well. Well, but we should wait and see. Man, this jersey news has just got me hyped. Because I want to see if they go back to the original logo.
Yeah, I think it's got to be a difference. It probably will be a difference from the Blacks if they're going with the red cape.
Oh man, that'd be so sick. It would be amazing.
Or maybe the Peace Tower.
God no. No.
Just to throw a loop in it.
Nope, not at all. But man, I honestly super excited for these jerseys. I can't wait for them to be released. If they get released tomorrow, great. If they get released in a month, I don't care. They're just super nice. But that's all for this episode, guys. Remember, check out our Twitter and Instagram page for our customized sports giveaway. We're giving away a Tkachuk and a Shabbat jersey kit. Jersey is not provided. It is not included. But again, super easy to put together. So if you have a blank new home jersey, we will have something for you. Don't worry, we'll be running this contest every month. Next month, if these jerseys are released, oh man, it's going to be a great one. We're going to have such a fun time next month if these jerseys are released by then. But for myself and for Derek, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure doing this again. We'll catch you with a new episode Thursday morning. Follow me at Shane_Ryan97, Derek at DLee075, and obviously the Sens Hour at Sens_Hour on Instagram and on Twitter. Have a safe one, guys. Derek, thank you for coming on again. It's a pleasure having you on as a full-time host. It makes content a lot more fun.
We always have a good time, Shane. It was great. Take care, guys.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe by Thursday's episode we'll have a whole new jersey to talk about.
We need something. They got to give us something.
Oh yeah, definitely. Maybe more teasing. But anyways, guys, thank you for listening. We'll catch you back here again on Thursday with a brand new episode.